You good, Danny? Meeting will come to order. Time is 6:01 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Here.
Mrs. Hanson.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Here.
Mr. Winsheimer.
Here.
Mr. Char.
Here. We do have a quorum. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go Navy, beat Army.
Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
And they might actually do.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Winsheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Char.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business would be celebrations, and I'll lead off with this one. Our congratulations to our softball team. Secured a spot in the state tournament today. It's a big win against Peak to Peak. So we're pretty proud of those girls. That's a pretty young team to take to the field, and they've got a bright future ahead of them.
That's exciting. Very good.
I'll just mention also the STEAM night was a huge hit. I think. Do you guys have numbers? Do you remember the numbers?
457
Yeah,
across
huge
the
attendance.
gate.
We had a ton of
330 hot
community
dogs,
members that came in,
60
and
volunteers.
it was just a really good, big community involvement event that a lot of kids, I think, benefited from quite a bit. Just a ton of fun activities, and it was cool to see the things that people thought up to present. And Mrs. Nichols had all kinds of activities that made a mess everywhere. So that was a great night too. Have anything else?
I do. So I believe tomorrow is Miss Singley's birthday. Is that correct?
No?
I believe so. And Mr. Bass's birthday is on Saturday, I do believe. So.
He's turning 14 this year.
And on
That's
top
awesome.
of that, October is National Principals Month. So I just would love to celebrate all of our principals who do a really, really good job serving our students and staff, and I appreciate all of their hard work. So. I also just want to shout out our maintenance crew. They've been working on the TPS kitchen. They took that project on, so thank you to them. I also wanted to tell Mr. Murphy, who's our Director of Technology, a huge thank you. He has put in a lot of effort to make sure we can stream at these off-site places for our board meetings, so thank you, Bobby Murphy, so appreciate that. He also has put a lot in helping us get automatic doors put in at BSC, along with ADA compliant doors and lockdowns, so I appreciate his help and his work on that, so thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Anyone else?
The FFA chapter had their speaking night last week, and Creed Speaking was the part I attended. So big class of freshmen in the FFA organization, and kids did a nice job. So.
Congratulations to Sydney Miller for winning the Creed Speaking contest, and she'll go on to districts to compete. High hopes for her there. Okay, next item of business, we're going to rearrange the order of the presentations a little bit. I think if Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Post could do the preschool presentation first.
Yeah. All right, we're going to have the kiddos come in.
Perfect.
Yes. All right, Susan. So we have Miss Nichols and Miss Alicia's classroom to come join us today. Just like one.
Small class.
And they are always this well behaved.
All right, so like Kenny said, I'm Miss Nickel, and this is Miss Alicia, and I'm known as the crazy preschool teacher. We like to sing and dance and go on lots of field trips and just have fun, and so we thought we'd share one of our favorite songs with you called I'm Moving, I'm Learning. And I don't know how loud they'll sing, but we're going to try it.
I'm learning what my body does. Like bend and stretch. I'm learning how my body moves. Like fast and slow. I'm learning where my body moves. Like high and low. I'm moving with my juicy breath. Let everybody dance and sing. Everybody dance and sing. I'm moving, I'm learning, I'm moving, I'm learning. I'm learning to move and I'm moving to learn. So come on everybody, help sing this song. I'm moving, I'm learning, I'm moving, I'm learning. I'm learning to move and I'm moving to learn. So I haven't occupied my whole life long. I'm learning what my body does. Like twist and turn. I'm learning how my body moves. Like start and stop. I'm learning where my body moves. Like forward and backward. I'm moving with my juicy friends. Let everybody dance and sing. Everybody dance and sing. I'm moving, I'm learning, I'm moving, I'm learning. I'm learning to move and I'm moving to learn. So come on everybody, help sing this song. I'm moving, I'm learning, I'm moving, I'm learning. I'm learning to move and I'm moving to learn. So I haven't everybody my whole life long. I'm moving, I'm learning.
Okay, we've also been working as a team and working together, so we've come up with this really fun game. We have no idea what it's called, but it has a balloon and it has sticks, so we're going to show you how to play our game. So if you guys want to get in a circle and hold hands, I'll get the sticks out. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Elise, and how old are you?
5.
What is your name? Dominic, and how old are you? He's 4. Who are you? And how old are you?
5.
5. Who are you? Cassius, and how old are you, Cassius?
4.
And who are you?
Jace.
Jace, and how old are you, Jace?
5.
5. You just turned 5. Who are you? Aerosol, and how old are you? 4. Who are you? Addie, and how old are you? 4. Who are you? Susie, and how old are you?
5.
And who are you? Della, and how old are you? And who are you? Kalia, and how old are you?
5.
And who are you?
7.
And how old are you?
6.
Yeah, he is. And I'm Miss Nickel, and I'm not going to tell you my age. And that's Miss Alicia, and I don't think you want to know her age. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Great job.
That would be nice.
I think let's just continue with kiddos and get through the kiddos, and then we'll just circle back and go to presentation. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Tell all your parents thanks for bringing me.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you. This was fun. Thank you. I have. Thanks for being here. Wait, couple more presentations. You're good.
Am I up?
You are up.
Okay.
Oh, you.
All right, well, I'm going to invite my 3 first grade friends here, and then we'll all be introduced. Come on up, you guys. All right. I want to introduce you to 3 very smart and very brave first graders who didn't volunteer, but when I asked them, said yes, if they would come do some reading for you tonight. So this is Frank Farnham. Frank is in Mrs. Bobian's class. And this is Olive Humphrey, and she's in Mrs. Unerich's class. And this is Abraham Guerrero, and he is also in Mrs. Unerich's class. So I'm going to talk to you tonight about a resource that the district has bought for us additionally, and then they're going to read to you from that resource, okay? So you guys why don't you guys just sit down and you can look up this way, okay? And then we'll have to get your Chromebooks in just a minute. So my name is Laurie Hansen, and this is my 37th year of teaching. I'm very proud of that, so I always have to put that in. I said, I'm not going to retire until Tracy retires, then I'll retire. But I am the reading intervention teacher here at Thompson, and I'm the first grade reading intervention teacher. And we have this resource called Pioneer Valley. And you know, our reading resource is wonders. But the school district has purchased this resource for us, and it is phenomenal. So I just wanted you guys to see what a great resource it is and let you know how much we really appreciate the extra money that's spent for this resource. The district pays $12 per student for us to have this, so it's a little bit more than $1 a month for us to have it. But you're going to see, we get our money's worth. And I know Thompson has it. Does Beaver Valley have this too? No, just Thompson. So when the kids get on to the, I'm going to tell you lots of things that the resource has real fast. I'll try to talk fast. And why I like it so much and show you a few things. But when the kids get on here, they have all these different choices of things to do. But truly, it's all about reading. And one of the things I love the best about it is that kids can be very independent, and they are using their minutes extremely well, independently reading. Not pretending to flip through the book or, you know, playing this little game that's a lot of fun that you play something for about 20 seconds, you know. As a first grade teacher, I know those kinds of things happen a lot. This resource, they're actually reading a lot. But one thing they can do is go to the letter tray. And I have discovered they love this letter tray. So I have 6 groups that come with me, and those kids are all with me because they're intensive or strategic on dibbles. So we're giving them, I give them 30 minutes a day, every day of that intensive reading. So they're using this resource. Then I'm also fortunate enough to have our advanced readers. So I have a group of 14 of the advanced readers in first grade, and I'll show you how they use the very same resource in a lot of great ways. But with this one, like the other day, we had these kids, they were spelling their little sight words. So we had done the words to, and do, and you, talking about why these 3 words are unusual and make their sense, but they can spell these things. Then, on their own, there's this one little girl, intensive reading, but my mom went to the shopping mall. She goes, can you read my sentence? And sure enough, she had so many letters, but just on her own, playing around, doing a ton of writing. So that's just one little resource that's new. I'm going to skip over the book bag for a minute. I'm going to jump over here to the bookshelf. So everybody has their own bookshelf, and actually what I'm doing here is mirroring what the kids see. So depending on what level they're at, and kids are in reading, we know what level they're at. The teacher has an opportunity to put in what their instructional level is, and then this resource gives them 50 to 75 books at an independent level, so a level or 2 up. And you can tell it what level you want it to go into, but the resource will do that for you once you tell them what instructional level at. So that means they're not reading books that they need to be have instruction with a teacher. They're reading things that should be independent for them. Tons. So like in this one, well, yeah, there's like 164 books in this, so tons of things to choose from. So I love that. So they can go to their bookshelf. And then when they find books that they really love from their bookshelf, they can put it in their favorites. And so this just has a list of their favorites here. That's a great one. And then I can assign them books. So I just put 2 books in this one. This is a book I read with one group last week, and a book I'm reading with another group next week. So just take a look at the variety here. So last week, with some of my intensive kids, we read this book, What is Red? We had learned the word the and is. So they had lots of chances to practice those words and sound out a word. So you can see that's what this book is about. They all ended up actually loving that book. They can put it in their favorites if they want to. So that's a book that we did that practiced those sight words. You can see pretty simple. That's called the Level A book. This is a book I'm using next week. No, actually on Thursday with my advanced readers. It's about bags. So we're going to do some things, but you can see the level of difficulty with this story. We're especially going to zoom back here to the glossary, and we're going to talk about the difficult words that are in the glossary, and we're going to find them in the story. We're going to talk about how to break them up phonetically. So those big levels, all in the same resource. I love that. And then one other thing that I think that is pretty cool, when they read a book, if they check on it at the end, then it puts it in their book bag. And I don't think there's any books, I don't have any books in the book bag right now, but in the book bag, it's just like if you had a bag of books that you could take home, and they read them 3 times. And once they've read them 3 times, they go out of their book bag, and then they can get them on their bookshelf or in their favorites. But that's just another tool. And I'm not sure if anybody does this year. I did it a couple of years ago during our Christmas break and spring break. You can send a code home. So anybody who has any families that have a computer, they can read these books with their kids at home. When we had to go online, my first year here in Brush, this is a resource I used a lot and they've really made a lot of advancements then, but a lot while we were online. I'm going to show you some things that the kids can do. Let's see. Oh, this is I can't show you that one. There's a book. Okay, this is one we did last week too. Jack's favorite things. Another thing, they have all these characters. There's different characters, so they can read the same book. The same character at different levels as they go along. So they fall in love with different characters. But here's Jack. There's also Bella and Rosie that they love. But they can read the story. And this is new. I only discovered it last week when one of the kids said, "Hey, what's the microphone for?" Well, if they click on the microphone, they can read the story. And then at the very end, it says, "Send this to your teacher." And they can send it to me, and I can sit down at the computer, and anytime I want to, I can listen to them read that story. So that's a feature that I absolutely love. Plus, they're also, it can be read to them, which sometimes that's a great thing to have. And sometimes we say, "Nope, can't have it read to you. You're going to do the reading yourself." One other thing that I want to show you that the kids can do that I think is pretty amazing. They have 3 books over here on this reading adventure. And those are at their, that's their instructional level. So if they click on one of those, and this whole process in this reading adventure, woo,
You have 4 stops.
I'm going to let you listen
Play
for
the
a
game.
second.
Watch the video. Read the book. Think about the story.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. But the whole process takes about 15 or 20 minutes, which is pretty much a rotation that you would have. So kids could get on here, they get great instruction with that reading and intervention. So they play a game that always has a sight word or a phonics skill, so they're playing a game. And then they watch a video where a teacher spends about 3 or 4 minutes just doing some instruction about the book. Then they read the book, then they answer a little question about the book, and then that's the end of that reading adventure, but they're books that are right at their level. So that's all those things they can do just like that. I'm about to let them read, but I'm going to show you one other thing. As a teacher, I can get on here, and I just want to show you all the different things I can use. These are leveled books. I can choose from any of these level books. These are decodable books, which are books that use the phonics skills that they can pretty much read. After you've done a phonics skill, you can teach them that. This literacy footprints, this is amazing. You can click on that, you can pick a story at the level, and it gives you a lesson plan, actually an excellent lesson plan for a teacher to use, and then some other activities. This is just a new phonics program that they have. This one goes with a classroom resource. So this is here so the teacher can show the whole class about reading a story, and then they have the books that go with this. This is one that I have used that's more for intervention. This is another one that's for small groups that the teacher can use with lesson plans. And this is one other one that I can't remember at this moment. So tons of things you could do. Do you think you get your money's worth out of this resource? It really is absolutely amazing. And it's very motivational for them because they like it that it's on the computer. And I am always one like, no, we gotta have books in kids' hands. And I do believe that. But then I thought, how do I read most often? Digitally. I read on my e-reader all the time. And they're much more of a digital age, so they love to read on their computer. We can have everybody's reading on footprints, and everybody's at a different level, and nobody knows what level anybody else is at that time. It goes K through 6. The levels go A to Z, so we can really, and it's just such quality independent practice. So, love it. All right, can they read to you? Yes. This is what I was going to do. Can you guys go get your Chromebooks? I'm going to plop them down in the middle of a couple of people. And then if there's not somebody in the middle of you, I would just encourage you to kind of walk around and listen to the different levels that you're going to hear kiddos reading. Here, Olive, let's go over there. Right, so you want to chug it?
You okay standing? All right.
So yeah, if you don't have, just, let's not let the administrators, let's let the school board people hear them.
There you go.
All right, she picked the story she really liked.
Oh, I like it already. So cute. Yes, very good.
All right, ready to start reading? All right, go for it. You can start reading.
Hide and seek with squirrel and rush. Time for the call into. Okay. I would have to do that.
Good job.
I forget the exact classification. The feds wanted it back from these people that were doing long-term leases, so they canceled the long-term leases and they kicked all those people out. My sister had to deal with getting rid of the trailer, and at that time, it cost my sister like $2,500 to have it gone. And that was
Okay, my reading friends, we're going to take one more minute to finish reading, okay? Or I know you might not finish the story, but one more minute.
Yeah.
Okay, first graders, can you thank the people that you were reading to? Tell them thank you for listening. Can you tell them? Hey, why don't you guys come up here?
Very brave.
Yeah, and actually at nine grand, you're probably better to grab and go on that. Next year to offload that.
Yeah. Breezes right through it.
That's the 62,000 for the buyback.
So I really am very proud of them and want to say thank you guys for coming to read. Can you give them a hand? Great to hear that. So thank you guys very much. Don't leave yet because I have a little something to give them. Okay? All right. Tracy just made, she said, hey, you better tell them you're not a paid representative for this company. I did also think I mentioned, they have some actual physical books that they could have for the reading intervention room. So if there was ever another pot of money, I would love that.
That's a great plug.
All right. Thank you very much. And thanks for buying that resource for us. It's been about, I think this is the 5th year the district has bought it for us. So.
Great.
Wow.
Item. Okay. Sounds great.
Be a good resource. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, this one, they all have to. So if she's set to extend, yeah, if she's set to extend, it won't work. Or flipping bands on projectors like that. Nuisance.
I know, he's like, I'm just ready.
Challenge accepted. I'll write on it. Yeah. You said you can't write on it.
He's like, that's enough.
You
I can't take
But
it.
challenge accepted.
I'm sure somebody.
That's what he said.
Oh, you just didn't push it in all the way, okay. Well, now I know.
That's why we probably do that.
You know, the little screen things.
I need your level of enthusiasm to match when I show up for poetry. Your board presentations. I want it to be at that level of enthusiasm.
So I'm assuming that Mrs. Blunder's going to give us a DAC
Put her on the spot. There will be no.
I asked, right? I said, her email.
That's what parents tell me all the time. You don't let kids have any fun. I'm not sure where the line is. Holding a sign that says number 28 exclamation is fun. Yeah, we're no fun because we took that sign.
And it took me forever to realize it was like,
Yeah, that happened too.
Static electricity?
yeah, and it shocks my MacBook. It was like gone.
It was.
It turns it off so it doesn't.
But it did occur
have the
about
surge, you know?
10 minutes after I told her you are responsible for whatever comes
Figure it out.
out of
Like I
this.
had to plug it back in. I thought it killed it.
Thank you for being here again, Mr. Murphy.
Yes, yes, thank you.
All right, I'm going to go over a few highlights in Thompson. So 50 K through 2 kids are recognized at our Paw Pride assemblies, and those are where our teachers recognize our students who are showing awesome Paw Pride. So that's the stuff that you see in the hallways. They have a positive attitude, they're respectful and make wise choices. So preschool all the way through 2nd grade, we do those nominations. 9 staff members were also recognized, so that's by their peers or colleagues, we recognize them. PK through 2 students attended the pumpkin patch, and that was fun. I don't think we had any boo-boos or anything. In past years, we've had a few things, but all in all, I think we had a really good time. We started our public library, our library visits. That's where our classrooms get to walk to the public library. They put on a cute little presentation, read them a story. They get to check out books if they have a library card, so that's exciting for them also. 140, give or take, kids received dental screenings, so that was fabulous. 457 attended the STEAM night, and 330 hot dogs were served. And that night,
It is important.
can't
That's
forget about the hot
important
dogs, okay? And that is where we touched base on this a little bit, but community members, staff members from Beaver Valley and Thompson Primary put on the event. So all in all, it was fabulous.
Like 60, I think.
So 60 volunteers.
60 people.
Yeah, so that's quite an undertaking. And 25 students were moved from read plans at the end of the 23-24 school year. So that was also exciting. And Mrs. Singley, she'll touch base on our next goal with that. So, oh, I'll move it. I got it.
All right, see what I keep.
Yeah, I'm her personal assistant too.
So the performance priorities directly off of our UIP, our number 1 is to reduce the number of read plans. And so we're hoping that we can build on what we did last year. Now that doesn't mean that if a kid came off of a read plan and then they didn't do anything all summer, they may have gone right back on it when the beginning of the year testing was. So in spring of 2025, we're hoping to be at only 25% on read plans And then spring of 2026, we're hoping to drop that down to 15%. Right now, we run about 35%. So about a third of our kids are on read plans.
What qualifies them to be on a read plan?
It's the Dibbles test, and they're, what Lori was saying, they're either intensive, which they turn out red is what we call it.
Okay.
And so that's SRD, so significant reading deficiency, or some yellows go on there too, but mostly it's reds, so low Dibble scores. And then our number 2 is we want to increase the average of NWEA math scores. And so right now, we're right about 55% in the passing range, so in the green or the blue area. And in spring, we would like to see that at 60%, and spring of 26 at 65%. And so we're going to improve our examine and tweak cycles of the Beat Digger instructional model by refining our PLC and RTI procedures. So that's what we're going to focus on to try to get those things to happen. So. Press the next one. That's it for us.
Yeah.
Any questions for Tracy or Lainey?
It'd be cool to just get some updates, continuous updates on that, because that's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
That's exactly where we need to head.
We'll test mid-year, so that a couple of weeks before Christmas, and we test again at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's great. Appreciate that.
Be interesting too to know where that needle is in a little bit wider range. So like, where have we come from in the last, say, 2 to 3 years? Do you have any of that?
I do. I have to pull it, but it's on our UIP and
it'd just be nice to see progressions and patterns there.
yeah.
See if some of the changes that are being done, curriculum that's being invested in, a big piece of that is the 4-day week, right? We talked about needing to improve academic results through improved efficacy and stuff, and be able to tie some data points to whether those things are successful or not.
Yeah. We've gradually decreased, but then it always takes a bump at the beginning of the year, and then we decrease, and then it takes a bump. So it feels like you're doing, 3 steps forward,
Right.
2 steps
Yeah,
back, 3
slide.
steps, yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Gosh, I got this
Did
big
you
bag
press
over here.
play?
Don't you go there,
Never respect the bag.
Well, and it may have.
I might have.
I mean, they should be in the same.
Do you want me to press play on this one? Oops. Sorry, not yet.
Yeah.
The other one first?
Yeah, let's do this one first. But come up here, lady. There's even music, so it's great.
Are you dancing too?
Bradley's good at that. They would be the two that would song and dance.
I think Bradley would do it.
Yeah, there's music to it.
Improv.
So this is Michelle Suter and Aaron Host. They came to help us out tonight. And, they're just a wonderful addition to our team. Well, they've been with us for a while, but Michelle works with all of our families, and what a great thing that has been for preschool, and we're trying to expand and keep with our families. She's been extending out to families that she's had. We're just seeing that increase of needs for family support as time goes on. And I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add. You've seen a lot, not to put you on the spot.
No, I think it's really great when you can build those relationships with parents, and so they see me all the time in the building, and when something does happen, then they're comfortable to come to me and say, hey, we're struggling with this, or even the exciting moments like, oh, we just got our second car, thanks for helping us work through our budget a little bit better, and just things like that. So it's really nice, it's exciting, it's rewarding, and I love being able to offer opportunities for parents to come into the building. Also, we're doing a pumpkin carving night, and I know there's a couple of families that said, we wouldn't normally get pumpkins, but because you're doing this, we're going to be able to. So I love it.
And Aaron works all the magic, so we're grateful. Yes, absolutely. So if it wasn't for Aaron, a lot of things would fall to the wayside. So we just appreciate she keeps us all going on schedule and functioning from a day-to-day piece. So she helped capture the teachers with photos. Our big goal this year was like to capture the positive moments that we've been doing. Because with you, as you noticed with Miss Nickel, like a simple game of passing a balloon around is such a big deal to kids, and they're learning that hand-eye coordination, so they don't have to think like, oh, I'm learning about this thing, or as I'm passing things, I'm using different skills and different things that will help me in writing and pieces like that. So the teachers have been really working hard of not putting any worksheets in front of preschoolers and developing different games or ideas that will help them learn and grow through a fun and more adventurous way. So this is a quick slideshow of just capturing what we've been up to.
Looks so easy, right?
There's also childcare photos in here too. I mean, I don't know if you'll be able to tell some of them are much smaller, but childcare as well.
Some big things we've had is we've invited a lot of community helpers to come, and so we had police, fire. We even had a semi truck in one class. They were at first he was just going to bring the front part of the truck, the cab, thanks. But he brought the whole thing, and the kids were like, "Oh, it's huge!" And so what they did is the class laid down, and they measured how many it took of them to make the whole entire 18-wheeler, which they were blown away, and so was I. I was like, oh, I didn't know it took 16 little bodies to make one 18-wheeler. So it was pretty cool. Those are kind of the big hits, I guess, of the month for sure. So, sorry, Marsha.
Got it.
Oh,
Got
okay.
it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Nice thing is, Bobby's here if I mess this up.
Perfect. And so here, this is probably something you're used to looking at from last year, but I just wanted to update you on like all of the enrollment numbers.
So keep talking.
Okay, perfect. Sounds great. I don't know anything about myself. You can sing, you can dance. I can't do that. That's for sure. So we are at 136 kids for the year currently. We're under enrolled from what we were compared to last year, but we've adjusted that and went down to 7 rooms. So our classrooms are full. We've actually created. Moving forward, we were able to create those 4-year-old rooms and those 3-year-old classrooms. We have one part-day 4-year-old classroom, but most 4-year-olds are captured in those full-day classrooms. We've had to get real unique, as you guys have heard this over the last several months and years, is we've had to get really unique on funding streams and how to get someone here for a full day. And it's been very difficult. Michelle and Jordan do a great job of figuring out what funding streams they have to be able to have them here for a full day. We have some kids that come until lunchtime, but they're in a full day classroom, but they have to leave at 11:30 because they don't have something to counteract that afternoon part. So we were able to enroll a little more in the morning and make it a little more morning heavy, so then we can still fit into like napping ratios in the afternoon. So we've gotten creative. The different kind of breakdown that we have had to look at is really that UPK slots. Our Head Starts typically stay at 70, but our UPK has gotten real interesting, I feel like, over the time. So more and more 4-year-olds are not getting funded for those 30-hour slots. So they're really getting that 15 hours, and so if they want the additional 15 hours, they have to come up with a second funding stream. So we're at 55 of those 15-hour kiddos. And then if you'll see the tuition, a lot of those will match up. So like part day, if they want a full day, we have about 36 that they're having to pay that additional fee each month for their kids to come for that full day. We don't have, right now, we don't have anyone that's paying for a full day slot, so they're at least getting some type of state funding or federal funding to help get them here. But it has created, well, it's created us to think outside the box, I guess is what a nice way of putting it, and come up with different ideas. We've also have CCAP, which we've always taken in the childcare, but we have more this year in preschool than we've ever had before. So Michelle does a really good job. She has to walk families basically through that application, take it to DHS, or help them get there, and get another form of funding there too. So our numbers are a lot different than they've been before, but we're doing a good job at getting them into classrooms. And then our enrollment for childcare is also over there. So we're at 46 kiddos. 23 of them are full-time, 25 are part-time, and then just kind of moving through those different rooms. We've had to shut down the digger room for right now, just because one, we didn't have staffing. We're hoping to open that up. We have a wait list. There definitely, that is not the issue of having enough kids. It's just having enough staff members to always stay within ratios and making sure that we have the best care, and we're able to provide that on a day-to-day basis. So that we feel like that is more important than maybe accepting new kids at this time. And then we're still learning more about the new Head Start standards. So those are rolling out and implementing those in 30, 60, 90, or 100 days, depending on how they roll out. And the health department new standards have been very interesting. So we're still learning about them. They actually haven't been approved yet, but they're redlining their booklet right now. So we are learning about those every time we get together. Do you guys have anything else to add? Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Hans Rodman?
Good night.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. So good evening, everyone. My name is Hans Rodvik. I am the area manager for XL Energy here in Northern Colorado. I handle our local government relations and community affairs across the region. Started in this role about 5 months ago. Wanted to tell you a little bit about myself before we dive into the slideshow and presentation here on Pawnee. Actually moved here from Alaska, where I was born and raised. My wife grew up here in Northern Colorado. She grew up in Eden, so that's actually where we're living right now. So got this role after having actually worked for the local school district in Anchorage. So I just want to say, really from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate what you guys do. I worked for the administration there in Anchorage, did a lot of our legislative relations, trying to get state funding. So I know how difficult public school and education can be, so I appreciate the board for your service and then for the administrators to do what it takes to keep the district moving forward. So, and it was great to hear, brought me back to hearing about the Dibbles reading scores, all the work that goes into making sure kids know how to read when they come out of school. So just with that, that's a little bit about me. So we'll dive in here, have a brief agenda. Marcia talked to me a couple months ago. Wanted to get an update about the Pawnee station out here in Brush and just provide everyone an update on how that conversion process is going to look here over the next year. So at a real high level, just some quick facts about Pawnee. It's one of our largest facilities, one of our oldest as well. So it came online in 1981 after a number of years of construction out here. It right now has a capacity of about 505 megawatts, and we expect that capacity to remain the same going forward following the conversion from coal to natural gas, which is a real positive thing because as we're working to kind of advance the clean energy transition, having firm dispatchable energy and power is going to be super important for the grid. Right now, each year we're about a $10 million bonus to the county, Morgan County here, and those property taxes come and find their way back to the school district. The school district is actually the largest beneficiary of that and the plant's presence here in the county. And then, libraries and police and fire and things of that nature is where the rest of that bucket goes. So all the work that goes out in the plan is accomplished by about 70 employees that are official Excel employees. And then we have a rotating contractor workforce out there that handles some of the coal piles and the ash piles as well. Back in 2014, we put on state-of-the-art scrubbing and basically emissions control systems to keep emissions at as low as possible when it's at the exhaust portion of the plant. So the conversion process, which we have really, we've actually begun those conversations, started some dialogue with the county and then some local jurisdictions about the permits that are going to be necessary to do the work out there. We expect construction to begin in the first quarter of 2025 with all things considered. Hopefully we can get all the permits in line and get all the equipment out there and staged and the workforce ready. Target date is January 1st of 2026. That's what the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, has mandated us to do. So we basically have 1 year to get that accomplished. Like I said, we're going to keep that 505 megawatt capacity, which is super important. Some background, Excel has about 6,500 megawatts of generation every year or every day. That's online. And some of the days this summer when it was very hot and everyone had their ACs cranked, we were within about 20 megawatts of hitting that capacity. And so having super firm capacity to send out and turn on and ramp up is really, really key for us. I actually talked with our plant director, Leif, and he said one of the days the plant was undergoing some work, so things weren't operational, and he got some calls from higher ups to say, hey, we are pushing the limits here. We were about at the red line, and so they scrambled, got it fired back on, and Pawnee came in and saved it. And that last thing is that Pawnee is going to be retired in 2041. So we've got a couple decades of good operations, but that's what's currently on the books right now. Retired. I'm going to get to this here on our next slide, but
Let's see what's going on. Keep talking and I'll
So-
do the same thing. I have this reconvene.
the next slide is going to talk about natural gas conversions. Really the big one, honestly, well, there's a couple of main factors. Number one, it's emissions for us. There's some state guidelines that Colorado has passed to require companies like ourselves to hit emissions reductions targets. 2030 is kind of the first big benchmark where we have to be 80% below our 2005 levels. We're on track to do that. This conversion to Pawnee is going to help. Natural gas is a much cleaner fuel. Right now, the plant can power about 175,000 homes. But we fought pretty heavily with the PUC to actually save Pawnee. I think that was some of the conversation that happened out here in Brush where folks were pretty concerned that the plant was actually going to be closed down, jobs were going to go away, and everyone was going to be kind of left just holding the bag. So that didn't take place. Thankfully, we are doing the conversion, so the workforce is going to remain roughly the same. The tax benefits should remain roughly the same. And then obviously the same level of power, which is really important for the whole system.
Nope, not button this.
So a little bit about the conversion process. It's about a $90 million ordeal, which is pretty sizable. There's a boiler conversion. We're going to be building a new wastewater treatment plant. We're going to be bringing in a new pipeline. We have the man chief units there that are fed by natural gas right now, and so we're going to tie in a line from those to bring that over to the plant. Obviously, there's labor costs and then basically a buffer for anything that could go on during the process. Basically, we have some metrics that are in place that the PUC puts up on us to hire the right type of people, and then to also make sure we're managing our costs, coming in under budget, being a fully regulated utility. means that we have to really watch everything that we do and every dollar that we spend to make sure that our ratepayers aren't drastically impacted.
Both the things, right? Thanks for being flexible.
So this is kind of a nice slide because it really shows where we were and then where we are today. Back in 2021, we submitted our clean energy plan. Right now, we're in the middle of working on announcing all of the projects that are going to be part of that clean energy plan. There's going to be about 16 new sites to generate power, mostly solar, mostly wind, battery storage, and then a couple of new gas projects. I think Pawnee is on that list. And that's going to generate about 6,500 new megawatts, so 6.5 gigawatts of power to our system. So it'll about double our capacity. So phase one was approved, the transition activities. We got basically the Public Utilities Commission to say yes, Pawnee can stay and be converted in gas. Obviously, the lawyers had to do their business. Settlement took place. There's always NGOs that kind of weigh in and environmental groups that really push for us to go as clean as possible. And then back in March, the settlement was agreed and we kind of got the green light to move forward. So that's where we're at today. So just transition, this slide is not as relevant as it could have been if Pawnee had been slated to close. But it is important, we come and we talk to local leaders like yourselves when we have these big discussions about plants in the communities that we serve. We obviously want to make sure we're working with our employees. Xcel has a policy of making sure that nobody gets laid off when these type of plant conversions or retirements happen. Everybody is offered a position within the company. We can't promise that those same jobs are going to be local, but everybody does get a chance to take a slice of the pie somewhere potentially else.
from our last meeting. So that's all I have. You guys have any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Next item of business, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as posted?
So moved.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Winchester.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, I don't believe there's any community comments, so be 8.1 financial report. Mrs. Carey, would you like to present the financial report?
Sure. Some of the highlights from September. Our large expenses included, we paid Tremaine Enterprise $172,276. Trafera was paid $51,398.10. This was for the licenses, repair parts, and the PCs the board approved in August. So those were all paid for. Some of our incoming revenues, we started to see our monthly payments from UPK for the year. In September, we received $129,276. They'll continue to come in each month, and they catch up. So I get 2 payments a month. One is for anybody that was enrolled after the date that they sent off the other payment. But the monthly payments will go down from here because this was the catch-up month. We received Perkins payment. This is the last one for the year. It was $13,832. I believe our total for Perkins payment for 23-24 was right at $24,000. Some of the highlights for October, large purchase items. We will finish paying off the Thompson kitchen remodel. Hobart got all. This month, the bulk of our time was working on the budget. We did complete our high-level review with CDE on our CDE 40, which is our transportation reimbursement. And they always do a high-level review, and they call you and say, well, this shows, why are you saying it's this dollar amount when I look at this many miles or this many, and that's all been completed. I got the okay today that it's 100% done. So I attended the CTE grant writing conference in Denver. This covered all federal grants and all the requirements for submissions. The main focus was the Perkins grant, but it also covered our title grants that we received through BOCES. That's all a federal grant that BOCES does for us. And that was very enlightening. After a few obstacles with our new CEP program, which is the Community Eligibility Program for our food service, our reimbursement claims for August and September have been accepted and will be paid out. I received the payment today, or the payment notification today. And the 16th, 17th, and 18th, I attended CASPO. The pre-conference was all geared towards new school business officers, and it was actually taught by Aaron Oberg that started in Brush with his career, and he has a law degree, and he just passed his school finance official through the CASPO, and he was recognized at the meeting for it. So a lot of information through him, and kind of when we were looking through all of our papers, he's like, "Oh, I created that," you know. And so he was able to show me a lot of different things that he had and everything. So that's about it.
So I have a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
In general, is the UPK thing becoming better, or is it still a nightmare mess?
On my end,
just curious.
on my end, it's very smooth.
Okay.
And they send me 2 payments a month. I don't have any issues with that. On their end, I don't think it'll ever be a real smooth process.
I would agree with that.
So it hasn't gotten better?
We've learned to work the system better. So that part is, we're understanding, and we have a great contact now, and so that's very helpful when we don't see a kid. Because when I get a matrix every month of each kid and what they're paid. So we never got that with CPP before, so it's kind of nice to see that. And so if we have a kid that received a different funding allocation and then I don't receive that payment or vice versa, then I'm able to follow up with that much quicker. So that is good to see. I don't foresee it getting much smoother than it is right now.
Yeah.
I do have to say, when at CASBO, they discussed it, and they don't feel that the financing will be there for UPK for a long term. They didn't take into a lot of things into consideration when they decided to do this. So,
Were healthy meals also a topic?
healthy meals was also a huge topic of conversation. Our CEP helps us because everybody that gets a free lunch, we are now getting a higher percentage back. I don't know, I guess we really shouldn't be proud that we're community eligible for that, but it does give us a higher percentage back on our food service so that all the kids do get to eat for free. And this year we actually get to offer snacks for Beaver Valley also for free. That was one of the big things that they added this year. So.
I'm maybe the only one in the room that doesn't know the answer to this, but what do we use the Perkins grant for?
So that is for all of the career and technical education.
Okay. And that's a federal grant?
That is a federal grant. It is passed through the state. The federal gives the state the money and they disperse it. All of my submissions and everything, they go to the state. They come back to us and say, you got to explain this a little more. You can't claim this much, or this was spent before you got your grant approval. That all comes from the state, and then they submit it to the federal, who sends the money to the state, and then the state sends it out to us. So,
What's that office called now?
Where the federal Perkins is out
The
of?
state, what's that state office called now?
That's just the Colorado Technical Education. So on the website, it's the Colorado State Plan, and then the reports is the Colorado Gateway, but it's just CTE, Colorado CTE. It doesn't have a very fancy name, which is good, not a bad thing.
It's changed names several times over the years. I always knew it when I was stadium farmers.
But Colorado State Plan is, that one's different.
Very good. Next item of business, is there any board reports?
I have one. Want to start off?
Sure.
I have preschool policy council met. Kendra went over everything that was in my notes. So I think there was one thing that struck me, and it was up there in the pictures in the slideshow, that they had the self-portraits where the kids laid on the ground. 125 kids had somebody come with them that day to help them trace their bodies and decorate them. I just thought that was awesome. That's a huge number of people coming in. And then the pumpkin carving, is it a contest or just a fun day, whatever it is? Yeah. On the 29th will be happening here as well. So a lot of fun things to be looking forward to, but they covered the rest of my notes. Meet and Confer also met, I think it's been 2 weeks ago now. It was October 9th. Went over the civility contract again. Everybody's really in favor of that. There were a few questions about, well, why are we, somebody brought it and said that someone had asked them, well, we've had this and why is it this way now? And, but it was a good discussion. Everybody is very much in agreement that we should all abide by these rules anyway, and it's not bad to put them in writing. Talked about correcting those steps. There were 39 employees that were affected, 39 staff that are a year behind because they chose the either or option. Instead of doing the step, they chose the other route. So looking at how we can take care of that, and Mrs. Cody shared some insights on what the cost impact of the district would be overall, that sort of thing. We talked about athletic passes. I have that written down. I can't even tell you right now what that was about. And then, if I remember right, where the athletic passes cover high school students, but not middle school students coming in for free. Or how is that? That the high school students come in for free, but middle school students pay.
Reduced amount.
It's reduced, yes, but not free. And so that was a clarification that they made. Talked a little bit more about the stipends for the extra duty that some teachers and staff do. If it's not a part of your actual job, then you can either have a stipend for it, or if you feel that the hours, like it's an hourly rate, that you can do either or. And if the hours are going to take you above what the stipend would be, it's encouraged to do the hourly, fill out that sheet, and get paid per hour for it instead. That was kind of the high level stuff that we did talk about sub-teachers' pay also, and how Fort Morgan pays theirs. That's not really even sustainable in our district for how we use our subs on a day-to-day basis, but it's definitely something to look at and be cognizant of, and I think there's something in our budget tonight that we're going to be approving that will help get subs a little closer to what our neighboring district pays them on a daily basis. So that was pretty much it. Is there anything you think we should mention there that I did not cover? Okay.
Anyone else? Thanks, Lacey.
Thank you.
Next item of business, superintendent's report.
All right. I won't read everything. I highlighted certain areas so you'll be thankful. Here you go. Our next board meeting will be at BSC, and Beat Digger Catering will be providing that meal. So after that, we're returning to district office for the rest of the school year, it's been wonderful. I've enjoyed it. I hope that you've enjoyed the tours. I appreciate all the time and effort staff has put in to go above and beyond to clean and set up and all of it, but it's also a lot of work. So we want to be cognizant of that as well. There'll be a work session about my evaluation, so I'll talk about that 90-day plan. I'll give you a recap at that time. Board retreat, this is in the informational section, but if you haven't had a chance to check your calendar yet, here in a minute, I think Mr. Chard will be asking you about June 20th and 21st of 2025 to see if those days work. One of the action items on tonight's agenda is the potential to become members of CASB and CLAS. And I did pull them up. You'll see they're up there tabs. I can go into both of them in greater detail, but I want to talk about the purpose and the rationale for those two is really about policy. As the laws are implemented and put into play and passed, and sometimes there's a whole bunch of them, to know what those look like in policy is important. To write policy is very, very difficult. And both CASB and CLAS, I could call it class, both are writing policy. CASB's written policy for a long time, class is starting to write policy. Once we have that policy, then we can go to whatever legal opinions we want to get on that policy to see, okay, what's the wiggle room? But to have a starting point is extremely helpful. So that's something that when we get to that action item, as a board, if you'd like to take action on that, you can. And it would be, hey, let's look at both and we'll just watch policy. And as they recommend policy, I'll share that. And it'll go through our processes still. It would just be have a starting place. Because right now, I don't know what policies were released by CASB, like in August or class. And that's usually when they're released from the previous legislative session. And so it's just a little trickier. So just something to consider. Another action item that you have tonight is an insurance deductible reserve. So I placed that in the budget. And I don't know if you want to talk about this more, Mr. Miller, but it came up. It's the idea is that we had the hail buy down a couple of years ago in 2023, which was very helpful on June 28th of 2023. When the hailstorm hit. However, we didn't choose to have that buy down this year. And so the idea is to become self-funded for whatever deductible we might need. And that reserve would be in place. We would need to add to it on an annual basis and have that allocation put into the budget. So that's an action item for you to consider. Questions on that? The next is the budget. I feel like I've talked about it a lot. Are there any questions? I'm just going to put it there. Do you want me to walk you through like I did the DAC, or do you feel good about where we're at? Anything that kind of came to the surface on that? Lisa's right, a lot of time, a lot of time. Sandy put a lot of time in, Lisa put a lot of time in, a lot of time went in. So thank you for the work that was done. It was just spent a lot of time on it. And but if you have questions, there were both, that is an action item, the resolution to approve that revised budget, as well as the resolution for the use of the portion of the fund balance. That's an action item. There's also an action item, going to skip to the fourth bullet point there, to approve salary schedules to align with current contracts. We just want to pull those out of the budget, so there'll be two separate documents. And then there's the revisions, those are redlined there, that are just aligned to current contracts. So nothing super exciting, that will come in the spring. The next piece is just what Lacey was talking about the substitute teacher pay. So our current certified daily rate, and I want to be clear that it's the daily certified teacher rate, is $140. We're recommending raising the daily rate to $180. So that is an action item. We want to be competitive. You could, I think, ask any principal if we need subs right now and if there's a shortage. And I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, we're at a
11.
There's a need, and that's it. We also at Meet and Confer talked about some other avenues for recruiting, making sure they feel welcomed and taking on tours. But one of the pieces is when your neighbor down the street, right now they're doing 170, but after 3 days it goes to 246. That's right. We can't do that. We can't do that jump at 246. But the daily rate that they have at 170, and that 246 is after 3 consecutive. So 180 beats the daily, but doesn't do the jump. Does that make sense? Questions on that?
Can I put you guys on the spot a little bit? What do you do when you need a sub and you can't get one? How do you manage that?
I know that.
In anybody? How do you manage
I'm like third string, but yeah, we get there. So I
you
cannibalize
yourself
my intervention. I have an in-house sub who unfortunately right now is having a health crisis, so I don't have one, but I cannibalize intervention, and when intervention's cannibalized, after we've already called all available, then yeah, I do it.
So just before you jumping in there, we're taking away a person that should be helping kids learn how to read.
Highly
better.
skilled for reading, yeah, big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Okay.
We cover with paras when we can, and Lainey and I jump in.
You guys have.
Yolanda was helping sub PE today.
Thompson has more paras than any other building,
Yes.
though, right? So you have a little bit. That's a little different, but
And
still,
it is different though,
still
because I
stretching
can't
everybody.
take my paras because mine are almost exclusively one-to-one special education. So if you drop a para in that situation, now you're affecting service time on an IEP. And I cannot do that. I mean, that can happen and it does occasionally, but that's not because I did that.
Okay. I just wanted the board to understand.
Yeah, we take people's plan periods, so they get paid, but I mean, they lose plan period, and Cindy is a magician at calling people and begging them, but yeah, then when we can't fill it on people with plan periods, then we have a few paras that we pull way more than we would like, and then yeah, like today when we just cannot make it work, we as admin go in and sub.
One question. On the 3 consecutive days, that would be for the exact same classroom, correct? Okay.
You are correct. Exactly. And that we aren't doing that. I want to make sure that's very clear. We don't have that in our budget. Ours would be the 180.
Yeah.
And just for clarification for me to remember that conversation, part of the reason that not just is it not sustainable as far as budget, but if we did that, it would actually outpace what our full-time in-house subs make, correct?
Yeah, there's like lots of factors and contracts.
Yeah.
And
so the in-house subs that we have don't get that type of pay, so we can't give that to somebody who's not an actual, you know.
Long-term subs.
Right. Long-term, thank you very much, long-term subs, yeah, so, a lot of things to.
Just need to bring clarity, what those are. The first step right now is, gosh, we got to compete. So,
Can I ask I have a question on that. I don't know if we have data on this or not, but I know when we went to the 4-day week, we were hoping to need less subs. But that's definitely not the case, it sounds like. So I don't know, is there any data that shows?
I don't know if you can extrapolate that, though. I mean, we might have less, the amount of subs has decreased with our demand, I think. The decrease in available substitutes has outpaced our reduction in need, right? Does that make sense? So even though we've dropped to 4 days, there's way less subs available now than there was when we were at 5-day.
Right,
Like the
but I
proportions
think we
are-
were hoping when we passed a 4-day school week that we wouldn't have as many requests for subs. So that's my question, right? Like I'm trying to get my head around.
Do you have a feel for that? Like the need from the buildings?
Last year, you guys requested that information, do you recall, from the buildings, and
It's too hard to.
it had,
track.
well, no, it didn't help a lot.
It didn't help, okay.
Going to a
that's what I was
4-day week. Not near as much as we were hoping.
And does it feel worse, this is a gut feeling, like this year, is it getting worse or holding steady with the previous?
I don't have last year to compare, so I can only talk on, hey, what is it in school districts in this region? And I think what it comes down to is that it's not the appointments, the scheduled appointments. I think those people are pretty good about, really good about.
Going to their Friday, yeah.
I have the flu, I am throwing up, it's
Yeah.
that, or, oh, my child has a game and I need to travel. It's that real life stuff that happens. That's where it gets tricky. And we have such a few number of subs, and when we're competing against someone who's paying significantly more that's not too far away, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, it's particularly difficult. It seems like on Mondays, would you agree, Mondays are a little bit better?
Well, it should be, because they're not in school.
Yeah, they don't have school
Exactly.
Mondays, yes.
So that's kind of our evidence, like, okay,
If you're signed up in
let's
both
pull a
towns.
bit. At least, let's compete.
Right.
Is the thought. So that's an action item.
I'll risk being the bad guy in this conversation, but to Ms. Hanson's point, I do think that we need to be cautious of what those correlations look like and quite frankly, maybe changes in requirements along the lines of a 4-day week, right? When you think about it, we reduce the number of days, reduce the number of hours in a contract, but we maintain the same number of vacation days, the same number of general leave days. And it could be, I'm not saying either way, right, wrong, or indifferent, but I think we would be wise as a governing body to keep that in mind and try to assess that, because naturally you're going to have, if people are using the same percentages of those leave days and packing that into less days of work, it's going to have a larger impact.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know the answer to that.
I
That's a good
don't
point.
either,
That's a good
but
point. Yeah.
I think it's all things that should come into the overall conversation.
Yeah.
Anything else on that one? Good. All right. The next piece is mill levy sharing. That's an action item that just says we're not sharing. That's a one that you've used in the past. Going down to facilities, another action item is the Toro buyback for $62,110.66. In theory, even though we don't match revenues to expenses, the thought is possibly putting that money towards a tractor for maintenance. That is not an action item for tonight, but I did put that quote in the superintendent's report, so you might look at it. Mr. Lorenzini did get 3 quotes. They all are right in there within just a couple of bucks each one. So I said, which company do you want to go with? And that's the one. So if you look at the last page, you'll see that quote. Again, that's not until November. The next part is you're going to see a list of items that's really sitting on page 2 of several expenses, just to make sure you're aware of, hey, these are a few expenses that you're going to see popping up in the financial highlights next month or the month after that are coming our way. 1338, we had that meeting on the 11th, and we reviewed feedback from the evaluation system review and also determined our MSLs and just retained those from last year, 10% for collective and 20% for individual. Then our district safety committee meeting, we scheduled a tabletop exercise for December 13th. It's still tentative. We have to make sure a few outside agencies are available on that day. Also talked about recommendation of a revision of our CPR policy to have all staff be first aid CPR trained, but to give a 2-year window to get that accomplished. Anything to add on that or that I missed? And then also it just was a noted during the safety committee was the need for counselors in our district, particularly in the younger grades, but in all of them we have our head counselor at the secondary campus who references retirement, that it's not too far off, and so how do we recruit? We know we need to recruit for special education, and counselors is another piece, so just keeping that in mind. You have your personnel report and winter spring coaches. There's also an action item for an extended contract for a special education teacher. In policy, the first one up is DAB, financial administration. The recommendations in that policy, that is coming from Holly Ortiz. That was about, hey, how should we handle multi-year contracts or a certain amount? So at the next board meeting, that will be a discussion. So you might just want to think about how you want that worded. Questions that you have, feel free to send those my way over the next month. For second reading, you'll see GBGG. Lacey mentioned about meet and confer. There was a conversation there about the double dock days. That was a question and with leave, and how do we make sure that all of us are handling it similarly. We talked about what is that? We just don't want to put principals in an awkward place like, well, you just didn't approve it because you don't like me and I approve it. So what is that? So that needs to go to admin and then needs to go back to meet and confer. So it will not be on your action items for approval to go on to third reading. We'll save that one. Policy BG does have some revisions to that, so you can look at that one. The main change to that is in where it says first, second, third meeting. It was changed to first, second, third reading. So it just will stay in a second reading. It's not necessarily the second meeting. It's until it's ready. Sometimes it takes several months before they're ready, just like GBGG. We're going to leave it sit there and just simmer until it's right. So it sometimes takes a while. The other is to remove that action item. This is my recommendation. The action item from second reading to third, similar to what you're seeing with GBGG and BG. Then it would just go into third when it's ready for that final after it's been ready in second, and then it would just move to third. So you don't have to take action on it and it's not required. Any questions on BG, because that is a discussion?
Does anybody have any objections to removing that second, or I guess that'd be the initial vote to move something from second reading to third reading? So if we go with this new revised policy, there's only one vote the board would have to move policy to final approval. And I mean, that's the final approval vote if we go with this revision. Just want to see if there's any concerns with that.
Say that again.
So this current proposed revised copy, the only vote the board would take would be on the final approval. Final reading, final approval.
So if ever, just to add on to that is, so if you see a policy as an action item on your agenda, you know you're either approving it, it's a final reading, this is it, or you're not. So anytime else, the first time it comes to you is informational only. We won't discuss it. It's just like, hey, I'm putting this in front of you. Anytime where other times it may be sitting there for a while, second reading, it's just simmering. And then finally when it's ready, when usually we have a discussion, we're like, yep, no more questions, it's not going back to meet and confer, it's not sitting. Then it goes to a third reading, third and final cleaned reading. Okay, now we're ready for final approval. We like how it sits and we feel comfortable with that. I can go either way. It doesn't matter. It's just whether what that vote does.
I guess the only concern that I would have in that process is, obviously, second reading is, to me, the time in which robust discussion around the policy and necessary changes, because that's the right timing to implement those and then go back through those necessary avenues, meet and confer, et cetera, if it's, appropriate to go back through admin, whatever that is. And so I question if, as a board, we can always obtain the will of the board without any formal action at that step in cases where there might be some division amongst the board. I just wonder if there's a true and concise way to identify, like, for instance, last month we talked about GBGG, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed a lot of things, and there was kind of a consensus or a temperature of the board taken, which is fine in those situations where there's not differing viewpoints. But if there are differing viewpoints around the policy, if there's not some additional step of action, what do you do in those situations?
And we can definitely do that temperature taking through that vote, or it's a temperature taking through discussion. So, hey, I'm not, during that second reading, hey, how are we feeling about it? I'm not ready. I want it to simmer. I'm not ready for this to go to third reading. So it's either way. I think and 100% okay with it having that second vote, because that's a temperature check too. The only time it goes to third reading after that discussion, whether you vote or don't vote, is when there are no more changes. So once that goes to third reading, that's where you want to say, okay, I shouldn't expect any new changes going into a third reading. We've discussed them all. They're set.
But doesn't that present an opportunity for a single board member to hold up policy through continuous debate and change, perhaps?
I guess so. I mean, if you really wanted to hold it in second reading, that would be the helpful part with the vote. If you're like, nope,
Maybe
we're going to
I'm
go
not
ahead and
doing a
move
very
it.
good job articulating it, but I'm talking about an instance where the will of the board by majority is to a point where they're ready to move the policy forward, and you understand what I'm saying? It's no problem when it's pretty unified and it's
Sure.
and everybody's kind of moving in the same direction on what tweaks here or there, but I can see, and the potential of those situations I only see increasing, not decreasing over time with what's coming down the pipe for us. So
That's a great point.
I just want to discuss that, see where everybody's at, because
Does anybody have a concern with me removing that change? That sounds like a double negative. So adding that second vote back in. Any concerns that way?
I don't have a concern. I think just changing the language of first, second, and third meeting to first, second, and third reading is going to clarify things so much in this process that I think adding the vote language back in is going to be very clear.
Okay.
And as we have this conversation, work through it, thinking through what that process looks like, right? So we sit down for second reading and we have a robust discussion about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to even then move it at that point, right? Because revisions have to be made to the policy based on that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
That depends. I mean, if any board member can bring a motion during that action item to move it, and if the will of the board is to move it as it's written today, even though there was robust discussion and maybe some disagreement, and the vote is to move it, it gets moved as is.
So does that, okay, so I agree with you 100% there, that would be the process, because, but I think it needs, we're coming together here and we need to define that in order, it's got to be action to move out of second reading. Right, so if it
Correct.
comes to second reading and the will of the board is, yeah, we like it the way it is, it can be moved out of second reading. But if that's not the will of the board, it can stay there for revision.
Correct.
So don't we need an action item step there?
We do.
In those,
But two things that can happen there is the board just doesn't bring a motion to move it, right? That's just,
okay, but am I misunderstanding?
you
Right
still need
now,
an
the
action
way
item
that-
though.
The way it's presented, it would move once
There was a consensus.
there was a consensus created of some sort.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like we'd be putting the superintendent in maybe a
Yeah.
potentially awkward position to determine when to move it.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing that I'm concerned about is that I want to make sure that we discuss all of these things about policy in a public open meeting. And so if you get to certain situations where it's uncomfortable to have that consensus discussion and those things don't happen in an open meeting necessarily or informally in an open meeting, it's not the same as having it in minutes, on the record that there was discussion there.
It's like a work session is what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be
Executive
pretty easy
session.
just to get into a habit of having a work session on everything and never having a recorded public meeting that people could attend and that you could reference. And, there's just a layer of accountability there that I think we need to hold ourselves to.
Keeping it in a public regular
Yes.
board meeting.
Yeah, so having that second reading be an action item to move to third, yeah.
Mhm.
That would
That makes
provide
sense.
that.
I personally feel that that would be potentially important step.
And policy BG is an action item to move from second to third on your list. So, but we'll just say without having that. We'll just change that piece.
I don't know if now, but we are missing a line out of meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
So question, just for clarification for me. We can move it forward in the second reading, after second reading, move it forward with a vote. Do we vote to table it, or we just don't have a motion if we want to leave it? And then the other question would be, we could also move it forward knowing, like we've done in the past, where, yeah, let's move it forward, but these revisions need made. So we need to move it forward, and then, because it can also sit in third reading also, correct? Like, it could be an action item, but we could choose not to take action on it if it still doesn't read how we felt the revisions or how we understood those revisions would be made. So we're safe either way. I think very valid point for Mr. Miller that he made here, because to Mr. Chard's point, somebody on the outside looking in could say, well, they discussed it at this board meeting, but there was no motion to move it to a final approval. Like, did that happen behind the scenes? I don't want that issue either. The transparency of it, I think, is important.
For clarification purposes, would common practice be that policy goes to those secondary sources as needed prior to second or after second?
It said, ideally, I would like to have it before second, right? But it depends on how things sometimes go. Sometimes like, ooh, we got to take this back. I'm taking it back again, right?
Well, that would be a situation where the board wasn't comfortable to move it out of second.
Yep.
Because perhaps recommendations came from those groups that didn't align with the board, and it needs to circle back through again for whatever reason. So then it stays in second, and I just want to make sure that when it needs to stay there, there's action to say it stays here for now. Is where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Any other thoughts on that, on BG? Policy BG?
So do we leave BG in second reading again for November approval with those revisions?
I think I understand the changes to make, so I would make those with Sandy's help. She's great. We'd make those, and then it would go to third reading if it reads the way you want it to. If everything is, yes, I's are dotted, then it would be ready for third and final.
Okay.
And on third and final readings, you have 3 as action items. That's that organizational structure, staff dress code, and the student fundraising, JJE. And that is all that I have.
Very good. Thanks, Marcia. Next item of business, 9.1, CASB and class memberships. there a motion to take action on this item?
I know it's somewhere and I could not get my hands put on it, but what are we looking at for total cost?
I have it, but I should have brought it with me. CASB is student membership. Do you remember, Sandy, by chance? What the CASB membership fee was?
10.8 was
For here.
Over 10,000, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then class, don't quote me, but I think I'm remembering 3. But
I think that is correct.
and we do have that like in the budget there, they're both there.
So I understand it that there's a line item, a budgeted line item for board expenses. That's not the right term, but CASB class dues, attendance of a convention, either or, all that comes out of the same line item in the budget. Is that correct?
Those would be purchase services, board purchase services.
Oh.
That would be best for Lisa, but yes, yeah. Mhm.
Sorry. I can't see her.
I know, right? To wave her hand, but yes.
Sorry.
And you could correct me if I'm saying anything wrong.
My question is, do you personally feel more comfortable having, you're the head of this school district. Do you feel more comfortable having CASB?
I do. It's a resource that I lean on. I would say, and something I've shared is that I would agree their politics are, I don't agree with all of them, right? And I would, and I, however you feel, whatever it is. There's some things that are said or done, and what I mean by that, let me clarify, is I have some really great friends and colleagues who are part of urban school districts. CASB leans heavily urban. I'll just put it there. And something I would recommend any of you to do is to get on their legislative council as a representative and fight for rule, for our voice, and to say, hey, wait a minute, our voice matters. So that's something I would encourage, but the policy, right now there isn't anybody else that's providing policy at that caliber of Colorado state policy, so I at least have it. So I at least know what I'm fighting or doing, or
Sure.
That's what's hard.
Well, I think when we decided to step out, we felt that Rural Alliance was making pretty good headway.
Getting close, yeah.
Probably going to be here by this time.
Well, I think we had a hope.
And we were hopeful.
We were presented that maybe the Rural Alliance would fall into some of that role. There's no doubt this board unanimously chose to leave CASB because we didn't feel it. They aligned as an organization with our rural community standards, right? So with that being said, I don't know that my opinion has changed there, but the reality is this. We also looked Sandy in the eye and understood and respected her challenges without having a policy source, and she's been more than gracious to bear with us through this time period. But we hear you. We hear you. We hear you. I do, at least. I understand that you need something that is providing you at least the insight, the knowledge of what's coming out of the State House and beyond. And so I see a lot of merit in it from that standpoint, but only because for me, it's coupled with class. Class, in my understanding, is at least what I seek as a rural board member, that organization that is focused on conservative values and ideologies when it comes to public schools. And so for me, I'm comfortable having that combination, and for me, that's the only way I could justify this, is having that combination of the two, knowing that the class is still working to onboard their policy development and stuff, and what that looks like in the future will be determined, but we have the ability to get that robust policy rollouts out of an established organization that has teams of people providing that, and have that additional conservative-minded source that we can then take those policies to if need be, and we can hopefully solve some what I know is heartache with some of our people that are responsible for that policy. So
I appreciate
we can
that.
ebb and flow, but I do want it of record of note that I personally am not interested in change. This isn't a change of direction from me from taking that strong viewpoint that we have to protect our rural and local values and make sure that we're aligned with such.
And it's just resources with the policies, right? It doesn't hurt any of us. Policy is so critical to a board and to a school district. And so having two versions of the same policy, hey, this group's, that's great. Let's look at it. Let's get feedback on it. Feedback from the board, the staff, the DAC, like meet and confer. All right, let's talk about it. Other people too. And then what do we want to do? But then to have it, that resource will be huge.
Well, I think too, knowing that at any time we can take whatever policy they're recommending that we change to our legal to vet and ask them, is there any waivers we can do that we don't have to align with this policy because it's not what our community wants to do, or anything like that is also very helpful. So not just, CASB in class, we also have our own legal to look at it.
Exactly.
I also find our new process for policy review makes me a lot more comfortable. Our old processes of getting 30 policies thrown in front of us with an expectation that we could do a just job reviewing those and stuff. I wasn't even kidding myself. So I was always in fear that something was going to get by me without me even seeing it. Not because I didn't want to or anything, but that just wasn't a reality. So.
Okay, well, I move to approve becoming members of CASB in class.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve becoming members of CASB in class. Any further debate? There is no further debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett?
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen? Mr. Catalini?
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer?
Aye.
Mr. Char?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 9.2, creation of reserve for insurance deductible in budget.
Jump in.
Sure.
This was a request of mine when Ms. Scotty and I met. We spent about 2.5 hours going through the budget. I thought that was not only something I want to do, but necessary to meet my obligations as your elected treasurer. And when we discussed, as I recall, the conversations and kind of the temperature of the board, for lack of a better term, when we discussed and made the decision that we were going to forego the wind and hail buy down moving forward, for myself and what I understood from the entire board was that if we were going to do that, then we needed to invest in long-term financial protection of the district in the event of a catastrophic high expense event. And so this is simply just saying we're going to, instead of paying that money into insurance, and if we don't use it, we lose it. We're now going to save that money year over year over year to hopefully build a strong reserve for that event someday, hopefully a long time from now, when that fund is built very high, that inevitably there will be another big storm.
So to be clear, the action on this item tonight is to not determine the amount that would go into that fund immediately. It's just to allow and authorize the use of that type of situation to start building that fund. And then that would be part of the budget process going forward, right?
So another key piece, I think you can probably articulate this better than I can, but for me, this only works if it's a long-term solution. Of course, we can't control future boards as this board, but one of my key pieces was wanting to make sure that this is very well-defined and understood into the future, because this won't become self-funded or self-insured, whatever term you want to use, in the period of time which any of us remain on this board. And so, Marcia, you can share, please, if you would, what you thought was that step to provide that ongoing understanding through new boards, new leadership, et cetera, et cetera.
So one, yes, that it would be added to annually, so just to talk about that. That amount to be determined, right?
And would require board action annually, correct?
And it would require board action, right? And it would require board action to use it. So even if you built up $1 million, you would have to have board action to use that $1 million. So it's not like, all right, yeah, you did that, so we can spend it. It would still require board action. Part of the onboarding process with a new board member is some of that work with budget. That's something I think that we need to sit down, similar to what we did in DAC, is to have those conversations, go through the main points of a budget, and this being one of those. That there is this annual amount that's given to reserve. This is how we handle capital projects or capital reserves when we get there, what are the different funds, and so forth.
So, just briefly, do you take that dollar figure from what your buy down would be, basically?
That's the
And then
idea.
just-
That's the idea.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So annually, as I understand, annually, the quote would include a cost for a buy down.
Mhm.
And instead of buying
Buy
down,
down, you
we
kick
put that amount
That's where,
into this.
we're not just hand picking a number.
No, it'd be based on that.
Mhm.
And so as I understood it, you thought you could build into the executive summary of the budget,
Mhm.
that kind of synopsis or understanding of what that fund is and what its purpose is and why it's there. My biggest fear is that down the road, in a tight financial situation, a different board, a different leadership could say, oh, we've got this pile of money sitting here, we'll just go grab it to solve our problems, which could, as we saw on June 28th of 2023.
Day that will live in infamy. And I did put it in the executive summary. There is a piece in there. I did add that. No, you're fine, and it may not have. We had lots of iterations, so. But that is another place, yes, along with the onboarding. Mhm.
I move to approve an annual allocation of funds in an insurance deductible reserve account based on the current annual costs of the insurance deductible.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve an annual allocation of funds in an insurance deductible reserve account. Is there any further debate? No further debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett?
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen? Mr. Catalini?
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer?
Aye.
Mr. Chuck?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 9.3, adopt revised 2024-2025 budget, resolution 2024-06.
Move to approve resolution 2024-06, approving the adoption of the revised budget.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2024-06, approving the adoption of the revised budget. Is there any debate?
I'd just like to make a statement that after spending 2.5 hours under this context of a budget, I understand more about our budget than I did in 3 years, just digging and trying to understand. So kudos to all the staff that was involved in making these changes, because not only do they encompass a lot of things that I saw, but I think it presents itself in a way that is much, much more transparent to those that we represent.
Any other debate? There's no further debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett?
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen? Mr. Catalini?
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer?
Aye.
Mr. Chuck?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 9.4, authorizing the use of a portion of beginning fund balance as authorized by Colorado statutes, resolution 2024-07. Does everybody understand what that resolution does? Any questions on that?
I think they do, but just a quick synopsis.
Could you just give us a review on that, Marcia, please?
Absolutely. So we would be using some of the fund balance of the food service fund. So you'll see that in that resolution, that proposed resolution. And also it's building that reserves, although it's not spend down, it is a reserve there as well. Also, it can be sometimes with this resolution, with the timing of funds coming in, like our state share equalization, sometimes you'll dip down and use some of that, a portion of that fund balance before you get all of those funds back.
Is there a motion on that, on 9.4?
I move to approve resolution 2024-07 and use a portion of the fund balance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2024-07 to use a portion of the fund balance. Any debate? There is no debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 9.5, substitute pay. Is there a motion for 9.5?
Move to approve raising the daily rate of certified substitute teachers from $140 a day to $180 a day.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve raising the daily rate of certified substitute teachers from $140 a day to $180 a day. Is there any debate? There is no debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller. Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 9.6, 2024-2025 salary schedules. Is there any questions or a motion on 9.6?
And Marcia, this was to clean up the steps, is that right? With everyone?
No, this isn't the cleaning up the certified steps. This is making sure our salary schedules align to our current contracts and to remove the salary schedule out of the budget, so they're two separate documents. So there's some cleaning up to align with current contracts, and then removing it out of the budget.
So do we need to have two motions there then?
Not necessarily, because once you approve it, then it is its own little document.
Okay.
I move to approve the revised salary schedule aligned to current contracts.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the revised salary schedule aligned to current contracts. Any debate? There is no debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 9.7, mill levy sharing resolution 2024-05.
Move to approve the mill levy sharing resolution for 2024-05.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the mill levy sharing resolution for 2024-05. Any debate? There is no debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 9.8, buyback of Toro.
I move to approve the Toro buyback of the used Workman, used Propass 200, and used Workman sprayer for a total of $62,110.66.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Toro buyback as proposed. Is there any debate or questions? There is no debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Chart.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 9.9, personnel.
Move to approve the personnel report.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the personnel report. Any debate?
Just for my own clarity, that used to be under a different space, right?
We used to have it under consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yep. I think part of the reason why we moved it out of there is because it's easier to navigate consent agenda if you have an issue with someone, personnel, some adjustments that need made or whatever.
Mhm.
Just easier for meeting flow and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Did we get a motion and second on that? Okay. Any further debate? No debate, roll call please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Present.
Mr. Wincheimer.
No.
Mr. Charter.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 9.10, certified contract extension. Is there a motion for 9.10?
I move to approve the extended contract for the BHS special education teacher.
I will second. And Marcia, can you give us just some findings that we found?
So it's just clarifying. So similar to what we did with the elementary special education teachers, where instead of stipends, it's, hey, they have to put time in because of their caseload. So it's time above and beyond their regular contractual time. And those times are to work on IEPs and to get that done.
Thank you.
Special education teachers are hard to come by, and so there's just so much time outside of contractual time.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the extended contract for the BHS special education teacher. Any debate? There is no debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Charter.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 9.11, winter spring coaches 2024-2025.
So to approve the 24-25 winter spring coaches.
I'll second.
It's been moved to approve the 2024-2025 winter spring coaches. Any debate? There is no debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalini.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
No.
Mr. Charter.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business, 9.12, policy G, second reading. So it'd be, need a motion to approve moving that policy to third and final reading or not?
Because it's no longer in front of me, is this the one that talks about the, okay. So do we need to amend what's in here to say with the revisions that we talked about?
You
Was that
could,
understood?
but it's understood.
Okay, all right.
Because it's not a final.
Perfect, thank you. I move to approve moving policy BC to a third and final reading.
BG.
What did I say?
BC.
It is, it says
Sorry.
BC on there.
There's a typo.
May I amend my motion, Mr. President? I move to approve moving policy BG to a third and final reading.
That's my typo, so.
It's okay. I'm sorry. I just said it. I'm so sorry.
No.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve moving policy BG to a third and final reading. Any further debate?
I think this is the foundational policy to all the rest of the policy. Because of that magnitude of the policy, I encourage a no vote to allow for those revisions to come back ahead of the board and before it's moved into third reading or review.
Return it back to second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other debate?
You're saying no. Did she say vote no on that, issue recommendation? So that we can say on second reading?
So it stays in second
So that we get
reading.
the revision back before we put it third. But if we vote yes to put it to third, do we still review it one more time?
We do, and we still have the right to say we don't want to
Which we
approve
could
it.
still say, oh, we don't like
Third,
these revisions,
yes.
keep it in third.
Yes.
Yeah, either way works.
Right?
Yeah, but they're both
I'm
good.
trying to understand your
Yeah, either
process.
The second reading
Once we
allows
get
for
done with BG through this process, it should be more clear.
Okay, we'll get to practice.
That's the goal.
Okay.
And I'm trying to
But if
definitely, I want
you
BG to work, just to make it clear and transparent.
But if I understand it right, if we say yes to moving it to the third, we still get to review it before it becomes final.
And he's doing exactly what he was saying is the reason to have the second vote in BG.
Oh, we're doing that on purpose? Oh, Mason, okay.
I'm not going to sit here talking at two sides of my mouth.
You could do either one, it won't matter. It won't, well, I mean, I
You
should be
you
quiet.
have protections.
Either way, I'm
Yeah,
okay.
it passes or fails, yeah, it's gonna go to the same result, basically.
Okay, all right.
Stays in second
Thank you
reading.
for clarity.
So we still have a motion on the floor. Any other debate?
Does that classify as debate?
It does. No further debate. Roll call, please, Sandy.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
No.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalina.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
No.
Mr. Char.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So it comes down.
Split vote, so it just stays, right?
Yeah.
Okay, since second reading.
Okay.
All right, good deal.
Okay.
But we got to exercise it, so that
This
was
is great,
good.
yeah.
Now we know.
Next item of business.
Democracy in action.
9.13, policy CCA, GBEBA, JJE, final reading. So the process for this action item will follow the unrevised BG, right? Because we haven't passed revisions.
Right, correct.
But this is the final vote. If everybody's comfortable with it, we vote on these three, they're out of our process, they're approved.
I can give it a shot, I screwed up the last initial, so.
I think they're all correct this time. That's a lot of letters, though.
It is, I know, I'm a little nervous. I move to approve policies CCA, GBEBA, and JJE for third and final readings.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve policy CCA, GBEBA, and JGE for third and final readings. Any debate? There is no debate. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Garrett.
Aye.
Mrs. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Mortensen. Mr. Catalina.
Aye.
Mr. Wincheimer.
Aye.
Mr. Char.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business would be information items. Next board meeting would be November 18th, 2024, 6 p.m., and we'll have that at Brush Secondary Campus. We just come in through the middle school doors.
Yeah, I've talked with Bobby a little bit to talk location. There's a chance we'll end up using the cafeteria, so we can just do cafeteria. There's athletic entrance doors into the arena and cafeteria. And if we decide to go elsewhere, I'll let you guys know. But I think
Okay.
meeting location, cafeteria will be the easiest for him to get what he needs technology-wise.
These stores, cafeteria.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then 10.2, board retreat dates. Does anybody have any problems with June 21st or 20th and 21st? Any conflicts as of right
Doing
now?
early enough?
Not that I know of.
I won't take you downtown Denver. It's a
I
guarantee.
can't plan anything that far ahead. Come on.
We'll put this one in there.
A week out. You better book it.
No weddings that day? Good. Okay.
Golly, I hope not.
No promises.
Very good. Next item of business, 11.1, clarification or next steps. Do you have any clarifications from the meeting tonight?
I don't.
The only thing I have on this piece is we're talking about probably needing a special board meeting in the next couple weeks, and Marcia had presented November 4th as a possibility. Just wanted to run that by everyone and see if that November 4th evening works.
I'll try to
That's a
make it
little more
shorter.
within reason than June 20th.
Say we brought that date
I'll be
first.
out of town from Thursday through the which it's fine. I can call in. I'd be happy to do that, but I'm not gonna hold you guys up either, so I just will be away for a while.
That'll be an executive session.
Yes,
that meeting too.
with the lawyer.
I said happy to call in. I can isolate myself in my sister's room, my room, her house, and be fine to call in.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I think so. Everybody else good on November 4th as of right now? The only other thing I had, and I know Mr. Miller, I don't want to take away from Mr. Miller's thought on this. When we talk about Pawnee retiring in 2041, Mr. Miller, could you elaborate on some of the thoughts you had as far as strategic planning, beginning that thought process now and looking into the future? And then after the presentation tonight, it sounds like there could be a sooner impact on taxes depending on how those things go. So, I mean, we might have a significant impact in the next 2-3 years. I don't think it'd be nearly as big, obviously, but.
Yeah, so I guess everybody's well aware that Pawnee is responsible for roughly 70% of the revenue for both our mill levy override and our bond redemption. And so it's sizable. The big one is bond redemption. And this is the first time that I'm aware of that we've received a date. I asked about it, if you recall, last time Excel was here, they said they weren't going anywhere. Pawnee wasn't going anywhere. So that's probably, in my opinion, still a moving target. But in short, what it boils down to is they've given us a date. So now we can start to look at real numbers based on a date, understand what we're dealing with. We have to look at what is our bond redemption requirements through 2041. What does that look like? I don't have it right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it's not paid off by 2041.
Actually, it's, I think, 2037.
2037.
Okay. We pass that down to Mr. Miller.
Great. It's like we talked about this.
Well, we didn't talk about this today, but we have talked about it.
Right. So, really what it boils down to is, I think, now that we have a date to work from, it's looking at the numbers and identifying if there is a strategic move to accelerate bond redemption to capitalize on that large percentage from that entity. If you have to understand, if you accelerate redemption, you accelerate it on everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, and so that's why it does take a lot of thinking and a lot of math and running the numbers and stuff to see what that looks like.
So an example would be instead of 12 mills, doing 13 mills.
To capitalize on the 70%, really, is what
Right.
we're saying. Yeah, okay.
Now, perhaps we don't have to do that if the timing says it's going to carry through 2041 and we're going to have the bond paid off by 2037, that probably lessens that. It's new information to me, so you kind of put me on the spot there, Mr. Charlie.
Yeah, I know.
But those are some of the conversations at the time, and as we work with just transition and those conversations we were having is ultimately if it comes down to that, I think it's appropriate to do that math and see what those implications are and stuff.
Right. And if the assessed valuation is less, then what, right?
Right.
To
Right.
just be
Could
aware.
be a big impact.
Because, I mean, I shouldn't assume that everybody knows this, but there's no, like say Pawnee closed tomorrow, right? It's not like, oh, well, we don't have that 70% anymore. It's still assessed and collected, it's just divvied out amongst everybody else. It's bond redemption is always collected no matter what, with the passing of the bond.
So it just gets doled out on all the taxpayers.
Yes.
Correct.
Property taxpayers.
Well, you have your necessary mills, that's provided by the county treasurer. It takes X number of mills to collect X number of dollars. That's what's provided to us. So it would increase the number of mills necessary to collect the annual payment in layman's terms, which then increases the assessment to everybody.
So instead of
everybody
12 to 13, that jump, it would be more like 12 to 24 mills. It'd be a massive
It would
jump.
be
Huge.
It would be very impactful to the
Yeah.
community, for sure.
So that, I mean, that's the kind of forward thinking that I think we need to be in. What do you think timeline to get to work on that, like in the spring? Or this winter still, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're talking about 17 years.
I understand,
down the
but
road,
I think we ought to put this on our board business document.
Absolutely.
And so when do you want to talk about revisiting that as far as, because Sandy usually puts a date next to that, maybe February?
Yeah, or maybe let's hold off on putting a date on that, because that's some pretty heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to clean up some other things
Sure.
before we start into lifting that
Okay.
elephant. It's something we need to have on our minds, and it's something we need to take care of, but I don't think it has the same time constraints as some other pretty big topics that are on our plate, so we just need to have it on our mind, is my opinion at this point in time. And like I said,
But
a
does
year
it
from now, we might have a different date.
Does it impact what we do for December? Because don't we make that decision in December?
If you wanted to raise them,
You're
it
not,
would.
yeah, but you're not gonna see it, I don't think, and maybe if y'all desire, maybe these need to be asked by the county assessor. I don't foresee a reduction in assessed value for the coming year.
Right.
He said it hit likely 27.
Right.
If it's
Right.
gonna hit at all.
Because,
Property tax, right?
yeah, we would be, in December, we would be assessing for 25, 24, for 24. So,
Yeah.
you're not gonna, they're still operating on gold.
Right.
And stuff, so you're not gonna see the changes.
I realize that.
I don't believe.
I'm not questioning that, I'm questioning more of if that hit happens in 2 years, do we need to start thinking about that hit now?
Well, that's a different,
You know?
that's a different topic, right? We're not talking about the impact of retirement. We're talking about the impact of what the,
I am too. If the
Value.
assessed value changes in 2 years,
Yeah,
do we need to
sure.
start talking about that now, even though it's hard to project because we don't know the answer? That's what I'm
Well,
thinking.
Yeah,
right?
well,
Like,
they do.
That
Yeah,
does
yeah,
impact
yeah,
December.
That's what we asked from day one.
So that's the hard part.
And all you can do is make decisions based on the information at hand, right? And I can say with confidence that I've never heard anything contrary to nobody, from commissioners to XL to multiple representatives of XL, that they anticipate a significant reduction in assessed value.
You have not heard that.
I've never heard that.
And
in any
he
meetings.
alluded to that, sort of.
he didn't disagree.
Disagree.
Things were going away.
But they're adding.
But
Also,
they're
doing a $90 million.
$97 million
Right.
upgrade to it.
I don't know how the county assesses
And-
things. Is it
well,
square footage on
and-
ground and then
And
take
you,
buildings away? I don't know.
you also have to understand that Excel's assessed value is not just on power line. It's all of the infrastructure throughout the county too. Power lines.
So the 24
I
inch
mean,
pipe and
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's,
all of that.
that's a lot of things that go into that assessed value. And it just so happens that the big one resides in our district.
okay.
Yeah. There's, don't they have a proposed huge overhead line too,
Oh,
as
yeah.
part of all this?
Yeah.
So that will be an increase in assessed value, because that's assessed. That has a taxable valuation.
We're also adding a pretty sizable solar farm to
I don't know,
Bonnie's
we could,
property.
yes, we could throw a dart. It's where
Solar
I'm-
farm.
Right across from the
Yes.
house.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the solar, how much impact on property values that's gonna have.
So we were told the other night at the meeting that some properties go up in value, so just to let you know.
Well, what impact do they have to the tax base?
Well, that's
What
what
he
I'm
said.
saying, the taxable value
I
of
didn't
that
agree,
property
but-
with that glass on it's
Said
gotta
we've
be
seen
higher
cases
than
where
just
they
pasture, I
do
would
go
think.
up in value,
I'd imagine.
right
It's
across
a lot
the
of
road
money in
from
that
the
equipment.
solar facility, so. Not sure
Okay.
they pulled that info.
Does anybody have an objection to a 5-minute recess before we start an executive session? I didn't think you would.
I've been dancing for an hour. I've been dancing for 45 minutes.
I got it too. Tell me when it's mine if you want it. I just pulled it.
Bill, have a good night.
Thanks for sticking it out with us. And
Thank you for saying it.
I think we need to schedule a review of that.
I just want to make sure.
Yep. After last year's deal.
Okay.
Can't believe I'm the cell phone one.